Hi there, Rodney here from This Must Be Talking Heads, the podcast, the YouTube account, the Instagram account, the everything. But I'm back with my big boy headphones, and my beard needs a trim, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Because Record Store Day is creeping up on us, and Talking Heads are involved once again with the big juicy release that I want to talk all about. So this is a preview of the upcoming Record Store Day exclusive release, Talking Heads Live on Tour, 1978. Now you might be thinking, hey Rod, Talking Heads Live on Tour from 1978, that's been out before. You'd be right. Kinda. From my research, about 600 copies were pressed, although I know for sure that was fewer than 1,000. But you might be thinking of this release. So here's this, Talking Heads Live on Tour. It says 1979. It was recorded 1978, came out in 1979. So if you've seen this cover before, it sort of has this Bugs Bunny logo on here with this big red thing with a cutout. That's the original release that came out. So there's lots of 1978-ish sort of songs. Basically, it's all from 77 and more songs about buildings and food. 10 tracks. You can see Psycho Killer and Take Me to the River here. This will be important later. They both go for nearly 7 minutes each. So plenty of music going on there. But this was the original one that came out a long time ago. And if you pay attention to the podcast, I did mention this on I think it was called Tonight Live Talking Heads, where I went through all the live shows, including Stop Making Sense. But I started by talking about this release because it was been floating around. And I thought, well, let's go from obscure releases people might not have heard of to the ones that everybody's heard of, like Stop Making Sense, and everything in between. So I did mention this on my podcast before. I have never personally bought a copy of this one because it sort of became very famously bootlegged. So there's a lot of Talking Heads bootlegs, bad, that people bootleg these recordings and sell them. But there are a number of bootlegs that came out that was actually just repressings or copies of this record with different names. And then on top of that, this record itself got bootlegged. So there were bootleg copies of this that looked exactly like that were floating around. And that's personally why I never picked one up, because I couldn't be sure that I was getting one that was authentic, and I wanted one that was authentic. So because of that, there was just too much doubt about it. So I never picked one up. That's great and everything, but so let's get to what is coming out on Record Store Day. What will be on the shelves when you're lining up on Record Store Day this year in April? Let's have a look. So here's one of the first listings. I actually found out a whole bunch of details about this, thinking that they were going to be like juicy exclusive details that I was going to share with everybody. And then obviously listings like this went up and it demystified everything, but doesn't matter. Basically, 8,000 copies, that's kind of nothing. It'll be exclusive, but maybe not that exclusive. You'll be able to get a copy if you want one on the day and shortly after, I'm quite sure. This is also, interestingly for me, being released as part of the International Record Store Day release. So if you're not in the US, which I'm not, and a whole bunch of people aren't, it's not a US exclusive. We're getting it in Australia, and I assume a lot of countries will be getting it. You get a bit of an idea of what's going on here. Here's the cover. So obviously it's not that red cover. One question mark that I had was, are they just going to reproduce the old red cover? But then, well, what's the point of that? Or I wondered whether they were going to fold that red cover into the new design, if they were going to do a new design. I would say probably not at this point, because looking at this sort of new cover, this photo collage with the classic Talking Heads treatment, this is not overboard by any stretch. This is probably better than that old Warner Brothers cover that just sort of served its purpose back in the day, but really ultimately wasn't that interesting. That series too was designed to get the word out about bands that were on the Warner Brothers label or their subsidiaries and just get airplay and get people interested in going to the live shows. And these records were a big part of that. So these records were originally recorded and pressed to be sent out to radio stations to be played on the radio, not so much sold to private listeners, private citizens. But now we can get in and get a copy of these things. So it says, was recorded live at the Agora Theatre in Cleveland on December 18, 1978. Published as a promo LP for radio broadcast in 79. That's why the old copies were saying live in 79. Recorded on the More Songs About Buildings and Food tour. Promo was never officially released commercially to the public, like I just said. This is the first official release of the full show, fully remastered from the original analog tapes, and features one previously unreleased track. I'll get to that a bit later too. 2 LP set cut at 45 RPM. So as soon as I saw that this was a 2 LP release, I knew immediately it was going to be cut at 45 RPM. I just had a guess. Because the Live at WCOZ show and the live show from Live at CBGB's, it was part of the 77 box set recently. They were both 45 as well. And I knew when it said 2LP, and I knew that this was a 10 or 11 track set, I knew that it was going to be cut at 45 RPM. I did ask around to see if anyone could tell me, is there anything extended? Is there any extra material? Because I had a sneaky suspicion that there might have been one extra song. I knew that one song had been cut off from the original release of this, and I'll get to that again in a second. But here's what you're going to get. The Big Country, Warning Sign, The Good Thing, Artists Only, The Girls Want to Be With the Girls, Electricity, brackets, Drugs, New Feeling, Found a Job, Thanks for Sending Me an Angel, Thanks for Sending Me an Angel, Thank You for Sending Me an Angel. Oh no, Thank You for Sending Me an Angel. Oh please. Psycho Killer and Take Me to the River. Let's have a different look at this. So here's a different listing. Same thing, Talking Heads Live on Tour 78, release date coming in April. Thanks through Rhino, thanks Rhino. 2 LP. This is just to say, this is just visual confirmation. Here's the cover, and it's definitely 2 LPs. And you can see here the, what do you call this? A vinyl label, record label, round record label cover. It's got the Sire branding. This looks black and white. I expect on the day when we open these up, these will be black and white. This is the point, not the red of the original release. Same information reposted here, I think. No other details there. So this is just a bit of a closer look at this cover. So obviously just across the top, Talking Heads Live on Tour 78. So sort of classic sort of 77 / more songs font here. I know that people sweat the choices of those fonts. So if you think that someone just slapped this together, I'm sure that's not true. I also know, given what I've been told about the investment and the involvement of the band members in these kinds of releases, I know that they weren't going to let that old red Warner Brothers cover slide through. This was going to be modernized and given the Talking Heads treatment. So across the top, there's from my count, there's 6 photos here. So there's one of Jerry, David, and Tina on stage, sort of cropped right down. One of Chris here, and you can see there's some kind of guitar. I don't think that's someone holding a guitar. I think that's one sitting in a stand, probably for because they used to play a 12 string when they played the Big Country, so that might be the 12 string. Can't quite see all of the little tuning pegs there and whether there's tuning pegs on both sides. But anyway, the point is, I think that guitar is just sitting in a little stand or something. But there's Chris. Here's Jerry. I think he's playing his keyboard here. And there's a microphone over here. But I don't think that's actually... Well, unless he moved it, I don't know. I don't think he's singing into that one. You get a better idea of the stage here. So again, here's David and Jerry. Jerry's keyboard here. And that's the same microphone over there that was pictured here. So they're not really near each other. Maybe he pulls it over when he has to sing and play. I don't know. This is the most obscure photo of the lot on this cover. Just Tina's feet. Okay. I guess this is from maybe the front of the stage because you can see... Is that her speaker stack there? I don't know. Might be from the side of the stage. But Tina's feet there. And then another one of Tina from the front. Leaning in, having a good time, playing along. I think a pretty good representation of everyone in the band. Maybe Chris, maybe, I don't know. There's a few photos of, there's 3 Jerrys. So let's do a member count. 1 Chris, 1, 2, and if you count feet, 3 Tinas. 2 Davids, 1, 2, 3 Jerrys. So Chris, maybe a little bit hard done by there. I'm sure in the next live release, Chris will, maybe he could do something to address that. But I said before, and I said on the podcast, that the original release, the original red cover release of this recording was missing a track. And I said that on the podcast, and it's obviously become a bit of a big deal with the release of this record. And the reason I knew that there was a missing track was this, which I found when I was doing research ages ago. This is a Fine Music Collectibles auction website. I don't know where they're based. I assume in America, but it says Talking Heads master tape for 1978 promo Warner Brothers live album with unreleased track. The original master tapes of their live concert recorded December 18, 1978 at the Agora Ballroom in Cleveland, Ohio. This was eventually released as a promotional only live album, blah, blah, blah. But these tapes include a live version of Thank You for Sending Me an Angel that has never been released. Well, I don't think anyone will go back and update this, but at the time, it had never been released. We acquired these tapes from Talking Heads producer, engineer, mixer, and all-round great guy Ed Stasium. Couldn't agree more. As Ed Stasium notes in his letters of authenticity, one for each of the 10-inch reels pictured here, the show was recorded live at the in-house studio at the Agora Theatre in Cleveland, Ohio, during the band's performance on December blah, blah, blah. We spent several days mixing the project, and the band had a good amount of input to the mix, requesting many effects in the mix, as opposed to keeping it live off the floor. I'd never heard of that, but okay. This is one of my favorite projects. Warner Brothers released this as part of the Warner Brothers music show entitled Talking Heads Live on Tour. It's meant to be tour. It says live on hour. Reel 2 includes Thank You for Sending Me an Angel. This was omitted from the vinyl release. Let's dig into the photos. There's two 10-inch reels here. So here's the first one. It's labeled saying, this is property of Sire Records, so whoops. Well, I guess it was recorded for Sire Records, but song number 1, New Feeling, Found a Job, Psycho Killer, Applause. Take Me to the River, and Thank You for Sending Me an Angel. Tape number 2, The Big Country, Warning Sign, Artists Only, The Girls Want to Be with the Girls, The Good Thing, and Electricity. So that's side A. That one should have been first. Obviously, Electricity, it was called Electricity at the time. This is the sort of famous name change. And in subsequent releases, it's usually called Electricity brackets Drugs because it goes on to be Drugs on the Fear of Music album. But then obviously that version is very different. So they try and distinguish them between the two while also drawing them together. There's lots of versions of the name for that song. So there's Electricity and Drugs and Electricity brackets Drugs and Drugs brackets Electricity. It's very strange. I think I covered that when I covered the Fear of Music album on my podcast as well. So just to close out, what do you want to be thinking about when you're lining up on Record Store Day and you're thinking about whether or not to get this one? There's never been a better time to pick up this recording, and it's been beautifully remastered. It's being cut to 45, and some people have asked me, like, what's so important about records that are cut at 45? And I didn't actually know, so I had to investigate, but I did a bit of Googling online and I found out that because the platter spins faster, the sound wave is spread further, which gives it more fidelity. It's a bit like having a flip book. If you made a little flip book and you flip the pages, if there were 20 pages versus 50 pages, the 50 page one would look smoother and just look better. It's a bit like that with audio too. So obviously the fact that it's cut at 45 will make it sound better. It has a bonus song that's never been released. Now, I don't think the person who bought the auction for those reels and that digital transfer have ever put that version out. And it's not like we've never heard that song live before, but it's not really the point. This is the first time that entire package has been released in its entirety in this way. We're really getting spoiled. We're really getting a proper treatment on a lot of these recordings. So you might think, for example, when they remastered and reissued The Name of This Band Is Talking Heads in 2004 on the 2 CD release, there's 3 songs on that release that are from this recording. The Girls Want to Be with the Girls, Electricity, and Found the Job. And you might think, well, I've already got those songs. But again, this is about just doing that whole release justice. Now, we've had live releases before. CDs like The Name of This Band Is Talking Heads have come out before, and if you've got that and you're happy with it, terrific. If you're lining up on Record Store Day and you see it and you might want to grab it, terrific. We're going to be getting a lot of releases over the next coming years. It's going to be a bit of a marathon, but if you're the kind of person who in a few years thinks that they will look back and regret not getting it, you might want to just do whatever you can to try and pick up a copy while it's available. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I just wanted to quickly rush this video out to preview this release. I'll obviously do a full review of it when I get my hands on it and can have a listen to it. But I'm also wondering what else has caught your eye on Record Store Day? What's coming out that you're excited for? I've seen that Rhino are also putting out the bootleg Detroit album by Morphine, the live album, and a live album by Stone Temple Pilots. So boy, if my credit card wasn't already screaming, I would be thinking about picking up those. But I am really excited for this Talking Heads release, and I know there's going to be more things to look forward to. So I'm trying to keep all of my powder dry to make sure that I don't miss anything Talking Heads related, which is why I'm trying to make videos like this. So if you don't want to miss anything Talking Heads related, stay subscribed. I hope you enjoyed the recent podcast that I put out too. There's going to be more stuff coming here, and if you're a fan of Talking Heads live material in particular, I'm going to try and cook up some special little goodies for you right here. So I'll see you next time. Stay subscribed, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.